What Drives You is brought to you by Ziglar, your premier source for equipping life and leadership coaches. Visit Ziglar.com and let them inspire your true coaching performance.
Yeah.
Welcome to What Drives You. I'm Kevin Miller, and I really thank you for joining me as I talk with today's most influential change makers to uncover what truly drives them and extract the big takeaways from their insights so you can integrate that wisdom and leverage the power of your unique inner drive and wake every day to your authentic, driven, and inspired life. In this episode, we continue our series on physical transformation. I kicked us off with celebrity coach Don Saladino. He's well known as the trainer of just the biggest names in Hollywood, like Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively and Emily Blunt, Hugh Jackman, and all those folks. So I appreciate that Don, he gets paid big bucks for results, period. So he can't sugarcoat anything or minimize what it takes to transform a body, which is hard work. And it takes more than just giving direction on how to lift a weight or run or eat. So I asked my friend, medical doctor and functional medicine expert, Randy James, to join me in the discussion because he, like Don, is paid out of pocket for transformation. And while Don often has people coming to him to change their physical appearance primarily, Randy generally has people coming to him to change how they feel physically, how they feel and function. But I think the psychology is pretty much the same. It means different goals, different habits, and ultimately, I think, different beliefs about yourself. But I want to start where you left off at our coffee this morning. And I said, "You ready?" And you said, "Yeah, I got some bones to pick with this guy." So you can do that. He's really big. But at least we're distanced, so we should be safe.
I'll pick some online bones.
Online bones. Yeah. Well, so you listened to it. So tell me, what led off?
Well, gosh, that might be kind of strong to say I have bones to pick.
That sells more downloads though.
This guy is so wrong.
This guy's going to smack down Don Saladino.
He's completely wrong. My way is so much better than his.
Just said 1995.
Yeah. Well, okay. So here's, I appreciated, right, Bones. I have way more agreement with him than Bones to pick. And so, but that is kind of the bone. It's like, golly, Kevin, it feels like we're talking about the same stuff, yet again, through just a different kind of perspective. And even this morning over coffee, we're talking about the lines of why we do this and why we do that. One day we wake up and I'm in the mood to go work out. One day I wake up and I'm not in the mood to go work out. And I appreciated Don by saying, his job is to kind of feel out where each person is. Yeah. And that's the magic of what made him the kind of guy with the kind of authority that he can sell a 1995 program to 10,000 people over, right? Like a lot of his business is a canned application of a way to do things. And it's like, okay, yeah, for anybody, if you just get away from McDonald's and into the gym, you're generally going to be better, whether it's this method or that method. And the magic or the mystery is in what he kept coming back to, the coaching, is relationship.
Do you remember, I'm going to read it again, Sebastian Stan, who's the Winter Soldier guy.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Yeah, that guy.
With the one-arm guy.
Yeah. He's in a news show on, I don't know, Netflix or something like that. Anyways, Sebastian, he said, I've been working with Don through years of self-judgment and mental wars when it comes to fitness and life. And I thought, does that not depict every patient that you have?
Everybody is on the spectrum of either I'm okay or self-judgment, recrimination. And I'm a worm. Yeah. I'm fat, I'm slovenly, I'm this, I'm that. And I chafe, and I'm like, hang on a minute. Even Dan Sullivan or Ben Hardy in the, look at all the 10Xs you've already done. Don't sell yourself short.
Yeah.
Well, in the coaching world, and that's where I appreciated Don, is he's like, yeah, I've got to be relational enough to know if today I give you a boot in the rear because you are being, stubborn or whatever, or a carrot, and say, wait a minute, look, Stan, you look at what you've already done. Like, hey, and let's just knock off today and go get some coffee. And let's talk about whatever. And there is a time and a place, right? You and I talk about this all the time. There's a time and place for cake and ice cream. Mm-hmm. And we're going to celebrate your birthday.
Well, this is Friday.
And it's Friday.
So,
and we did. We celebrated with a $4.50 cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And 2 hours of what we called this morning light and love and camaraderie. And it filled us up.
Yeah.
And we are better people for that. And I would say that was, for Friday mornings, it's better spent than 2 hours on a mountain bike trail.
Well, I went over. I told you guys I was going to leave at 9, and it was after 9:30.
Yeah, did you get in trouble?
No, but I didn't walk. That's what I wanted.
That was what you were going to do. You had set yourself a time. And you took less walking and more fellowship.
Yeah, totally. And, with this, it's interesting. I do want to point out the fact that you just mentioned coaching, which years ago you would not have used for yourself. Because as a doctor, as a medical doctor who went through medical school.
It's beneath me.
It's beneath you. Yeah, well, legit. Totally. But that's the perspective. And yet, well, no, let's be, let me try to be kind and tactful. But in traditional medicine, if all you were doing was prescribing a medication and just kind of managing the sickness, you're not coaching so much. You're just you're a mechanic. Okay, this is wrong. Take this, whatever. In the methodology of medicine that you've chosen, which is preventative primarily, it's coaching. Because if you can come and say, Kevin, I can figure out, we did your labs, these advanced labs. I can see this, I can see what's happening. It's going to take some changes right there.
Yeah.
That's coaching. Because to get me to take a pill, well, it's interesting. I was going to say not too big a deal, though. Even that compliance is so low with people even taking a pill that their doctor prescribes, much less for you to go, gosh, here's some dietary changes, some exercise changes, some, meditation, some sleep, some whatever. Holy smokes. And if I don't go do it, you have not had any impact on my life. So there you are sitting going, as a doc, going, okay, I didn't go to medical school to figure out how to motivate people.
And thus is the story of my last 20 years.
I know.
Right? To shift from saying, okay, wait a minute, actually, now we're back to that word relationship, to be in a relationship with myself, to be able to actually change, and then with a person to enter into the fray, enter into the ring of their lives. And so what I've been actually, and if people are hiring me, I'll say all these words at the front and say, here's what you're buying, is if all you want is the American medical system will apply three things. Do you need a medicine, a surgery, or a procedure? Right? Like a procedural something, which might be physical therapy or something like that. And if that's what you think you need, then you don't need me. But the product that I'm going to sell as a doctor is the root word. If we do root causes, the root word of doctor is docent, which if you go back 1,000 years ago into the university meant
teacher,
coach. Yeah. And now teacher these days means sit still, learn what I'm telling you, memorize it, and regurgitate it on a test.
Right.
Now, okay, we're being unkind and, too pointing in a box. A real teacher, the ones that we look back and we remember, that teacher changed my life.
Mr. Miyagi.
They got in the fray.
Yeah.
And you use Mr. Miyagi. And so the word that I use that I think is the best word for doctor, sensei.
Okay.
Because now I'm going to spar with you. I'm going to get in the ring. I'm going to take a punch and I'm going to give you a punch.
Yeah.
Right? Like, tell me why you hate this or that. Why won't you eat this or that? Why do you want to have a body that works? What are you going to do with your thyroid when it's functioning properly? What are you working towards? That's what we're going to call well-being. I mean, diagnosing diabetes, that's easy.
Yeah.
And giving you a pill for that's easy. But that pill will only help you to die slower.
Yeah.
It will not help you to be becoming weller, as according to your own definition of well. And I heard Don saying those things, right? Like, and of course, Ryan Reynolds was the muse because he's a famous dude, and you got, the Winter Soldier there and all these guys. And so there again, that allows Don to then write a book, because I'm going to say, oh, he trained these guys. I'm going to listen to what he said. but he's still going to say the same thing, whether you're Mrs. Smith or Ryan Reynolds or the president. And that's where I feel great, both humility and awe, that the flip around, not to be flippant to the doctor who is using their great learning and skill to apply the proper medicine at the proper time to get a best result. That's a great application of that set of knowledge. I'm gonna say again, yes, if the patient thinks they need medicine, surgery, or procedure, then there's a great system there for that. And it actually works great if you need a surgery. It doesn't work great if you say you want to feel better. Mm-hmm. If you start to talk about, well, we don't even have a word for it. Like, let me quiz you. What's the first word in your mind? If I just came along and said, what is the opposite of diabetes?
Of diabetes?
What's the opposite?
It's just wellness.
Yeah. Most people say normal.
Yeah.
And the very first word, if you hire me.
What is normal?
Yeah,
I know. Yeah, right.
The first word you can't say is normal. So we don't even have a word for what, I almost said normal, for what good insulin and glucose metabolism is. We call it normal. I'm like, that's the dumbest, stupidest, most inane thing to say. Like that would be the equivalent of looking at Michelangelo's work of whatever over here and calling it the same as a 6-year-old's, drawing on a piece of paper. They're both drawings.
I guess then it would be, I'm thinking, I don't know what the term is, but it'd be a fully functioning mechanism inside of me that can deal with sugar and
now you
resilience.
Okay. You are looking for, and you're going to use a paragraph to describe it. Why? Because when we talk about any cell along your leg or arm or your thyroid or whatever, if we're going to call it well, now we're into human performance enhancement.
Right. How
to draw like Michelangelo versus draw like me. Or how to run like Usain Bolt. Versus me, right? Like these are opposite ends of the spectrum because we don't have words for normal or optimum or whatever. We take it for granted. And since we take it for granted, we don't have descriptive words.
I'm going to assume every time you're dealing primarily with their relationship with themselves, that it is probably one of the reasons that got them into the clinic here is a relationship with themselves. Even if it wasn't knowingly doing something that was harmful to their body, it was unknowingly, it was ignorance,
right?
Which, I quote you all the time. You say the most dangerous thing is we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
Which is the case for you and me today. And we're sitting here at Starbucks in the morning trying to figure out what we don't know.
Right.
Which I think is our responsibility.
That's right. We are all on the spectrum.
Yeah.
We can know more. And theoretically, that increases the chances that we experience more well-being.
Yeah.
And then you and I would say, as not expressed, I'm not after drawing like Michelangelo, but I would really like for people in my life to think that I'm growing in kindness or wisdom or mercy or justice, the proper wise application of justice. And that's these virtues, right? Like, and we cringe at the word virtue is like, but what else are you going to call these? And
values, I think we look at them but virtue is more of to me, I'm thinking like, it's like a commitment to the value.
Okay. Right. And these things are also where I get the great privileges of being invited into people's lives is they are in part related to your thyroid and your liver and your kidney and what you ate for dinner last night and how you dated your wife and the capacity to go ride a bike or not is this is your relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
And then in the highest, most humans over the course of time don't write books about thyroid function. They write books about story and the main character had a problem. And it's the Donald Miller thing.
Yeah.
But Luke Skywalker has a thyroid. And if it's not working, he can't touch the Force.
That's the only time we talk about it. What I want it to do is work. And
that's right. You want to take it for granted. You absolutely want to take it for granted.
That's an interesting statement. I mean, what is my goal with my health and wellness?
To never have to think about it.
To be able to take it for granted. Which
without working for it. That's right.
Well, sure. So in that, I'm working for it so I can kind of take it for granted to some degree, expect it to work. And like you and I talk about and expect to be well and expect to not get sick. And hopefully, even though we may do that. But, back to this aspect of our relationship with ourselves. So let's go to Don, so he's getting hired by the next actor, and paying big bucks because they're going to get a big role. It's a great motive. What's their motive? It's $1 million role.
I'm going to be
10
Conan.
million. Yeah. Or whatever. It's a big motive there. It's very tangible. And it brings me back to what I know is also one of your first questions with somebody is to say, what's your goal? What are you here for? Well, my knee hurts. Okay. So, I'm playing, but exaggerating, but to some degree, so your knee hurts. Lots of people's knees hurt. Why do you want yours? I know you do this. Why do you want, I just want it to be better. Why?
Why? To what end? What do you, and that is and I get pushback. And these days, since I'm more confident in the product that I sell, I'll lean in and say, look, I'm not going to let you not answer me. Because if you can't answer me, then what am I? Then just go take some Motrin.
I was going to say to go take some Motrin, and you know that when things get difficult,
you're going to quit.
You're going to quit. Do you remember the guy in the wheelchair a long time ago? Older guy in a wheelchair. I do. I'll tell a story. So older guy in a wheelchair came in here, and I'm gonna exaggerate the point because I don't know exactly how the conversation went down. But so why are you in here? Well, I'm in a wheelchair. I want to get out. Okay, why? Because who wants to be in a wheelchair? But why? Anyways, I remember because his daughter was real involved, older daughter, adult daughter. And it was ultimately, he wanted to go before he died or whatever, visit like all the memorials. Maybe he was a vet and he wanted, but that was it. He wanted to go on a trip and he wanted to be able to do this. That is a good motive.
Yeah.
That's because you'll get this role in,
Now, that's right.
Yeah.
And I remember that.
Okay.
And if you ask me about a patient and I'll say, I don't remember wheelchair or knee pain, but if you'll say, well, their goal was,
Okay.
Think about that. That is the story. That's what drives human existence.
And it probably drove you too.
To just help get him guy.
I want to help him go see these things that are meaningful.
Another one, I tell a story all the time. This woman was nearing 80 and she had set out for, I'm going to get in shape and I'm going to do all this and I'm going to South America. And she went on a boat. She did this thing. So at 81, 82, wherever she was, she did this trip. She met people from all over the world. It was fantastic. It was such a great thing. She came back and I said, what are you going to do next? And you know what she said? I don't know. And she was gone.
Danger.
She was gone a year later.
Well, let's play with the movie thing. What happens, so somebody does they always have the funny tabloid things of they get all bulked up and ripped and whatever for this, Thor does. And then 2 months afterwards, he's Fat Thor.
He's fat though.
And we see those actors that go back and forth through the transformation. But I appreciate that, okay, even if you are, because I'm wanting to take in the humanity of it. That was my point with Don and take out the celebrity. So even if you've got the money to pay him, who knows what they pay him, $500,000, but whatever they pay him to get them in shape and they can have a personal trainer, they can have all this. I think we discount it. It's still a human. So if you're Chris Hemsworth or Ryan Reynolds sitting there, after this is over, we're going to have lunch and we'd both like to have pizza. Yeah. You would too. You just know your motive.
I appreciated that on, cause he also said, it's Mrs. Smith or it's Ryan Reynolds or it's the billionaire guy that had $100 billion and he was eating fast food. And Don's looking at him like, you could hire 10 chefs every day. And you're telling me you want to get well, but you're eating fast food. Like this just doesn't add up. I'm not working with you until.
And so he has to do the same thing. Coach him to go, what is your motive? Otherwise don't, and be clear.
And then align your behaviors with your goals.
Exactly. That's exactly where I was going. Cause then it comes down to, I was thinking of, how we see ourselves. I wanted to say this too. Cause you said, what are the three things of Western medicine? A pill, what'd you say? A pill, a surgery, or a procedure. And you said even physical therapy, because I see myself, true story on me with my recent 7 broken bones. I see myself as this athletic, fit, fully capable person, and I revel in it. And so to go out and run, ride, do our push-ups, do pull-ups and whatever, I'm there. Now that I am injured, I'm all of a sudden, I'm not that guy.
Right.
I couldn't pull my pants up. I can't. And even today, I just can't. I tried to hang on the chin-up bar in your office yesterday, And I just started to put pressure and nope, I'm not there yet. And so I went down on my knees and thought maybe a little bit of a push-up. Nope. And I'm not there. And so with that, I'm having a hard time doing anything. It's like, if I can't do it all,
If you can't do it all, then why do anything?
my self-image is gone.
Yeah.
I've literally I bet I've put on 5 pounds. And so now we're back to
become a
psychology.
sissy walker.
I'm a sissy walker at best. And I don't like doing it. I'm out there walking thinking I'm not accomplishing anything.
Yeah.
I'm not, if I'm not redlining and whatever. And we're back to how I see myself. And now I'm struggling.
And then I would come in and say, look, you're selling yourself short. So no human, and we've talked about this before, gets to quote unquote not exercise. There's no injury that takes you out of the exercise capacity. Your exercise changed.
Yeah.
And walking is a good exercise and yada, yada. It doesn't feel like it to you because mentally your construct is this other person. But if you don't do anything, you're even further away from the guy that you want to be. So you do have to shift that mental construct over. And this would be that relationship and say, you know what, Kevin, right? Like if I'm your personal trainer, then it's like, hey, we're not going to do push-ups today. Let's go on a walk. In your case, I'd say, let's do some Wim Hof breathing. Okay, now put your mind on this stuff and do some breath work and mind work. And
it comes into how I've not seen myself as that person.
That's right.
And that's where I was getting to, is looking at
the malalignment.
Back to like what Sebastian Stan said, I've been working with Don through self-judgment, mental wars, let's talk about both self-judgment and mental wars, but with everybody. So everybody who's listening to this right now, how do you see yourself? I'm the kind of person, what would each of us say? I'm the kind of person who eats this way. What would you eat? Well, I eat anything. I eat whatever. I eat a little of this.
Iron cast stomach.
Yeah, I can eat nails. Or I'm the kind of person who doesn't eat that way. Do we have anything? How do we see ourselves? How do we label ourselves? I'm the kind of person who drinks alcohol or doesn't, in moderation or not. That's one. I'm a person who can moderate or not. I'm the person, I view myself as, I'm the kind of person I have pretty good self-control, discipline over my health and wellness. Or, right now everybody can answer that. Think about it. Or no, I don't. I know that I'm going to get home tonight. I'm going to watch a show and I'm going to grab some chips. And I know that I'm going to do that. That's the kind of person I see. Man, until that changes, so for me, until I change the thought of I'm broken, I can't do any of my stuff, to go, no, I can breathe, I can walk, I can do some things. We're kind of peeing in the wind otherwise. And I'm interested with that self-image. We're talking about transformation.
Okay. I'm going to bring in our conversation from this morning.
Yeah.
Because we can't always end on this bothness idea. And yet we have to sometimes. So you, in a sense, your perspective of yourself is one of athleticism and capacity to do these things. And when that now is not aligned with the reality or the fixed point of Kevin Miller can't do a push-up.
Yep.
Like right now, if we had a push-up contest, I win.
You think?
So I think we should. Because it's the only time.
I think an infant would win. I can't do one.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a kind of malalignment or misalignment. That's a nicer word. You are misaligned with yourself.
Yeah.
So you've got to bring one side of yourself must be becoming, or you're just predispositioning yourself towards less wellness, less wholeness.
Right.
And this is really tough because other people say, I'm okay being overweight and I can't do push-ups and whatever else. I see myself that way and I choose to be okay with that. And I'm saying, okay, those people aren't ever going to be my patients. And there's not a moral stance here. In one sense or another, we could argue, this and that and the other about the healthcare system and whatever, but to each individual, there's no law. And I think that's good. Otherwise, we're becoming a Pharisee that says, oh my gosh, if you weigh 10% more than your ideal body weight, and we're going to call it sin.
Right.
Or you can't do push-ups, we're going to call that sin.
Right.
We're going to call it wrong, like morally wrong. We're not going to do that. But within each person, there's an internal plumb line, so to speak, of how I see myself. And then, where does this get into the reality of the actual physical situation, and when there's malalignment there, this becomes debatable in the gender area.
Right.
How do I see myself on the inside? Does that match up with what is going on externally? And it creates disillusionment. It creates dysfunction. Creates all these other kind of things. And there is no perfect way to be that allows you to take for granted your capacity.
Right.
That's utopia. That's a pie in the sky. That's whatever. So this side of death, we don't ever get to experience perfect alignment. So now that we're in the both kind of category, but I think it's at me as the coach to you, I'd say, because I know you, I know it's going to take years of brokenness before you lose your athletic sense of self. Like this year, well, okay, in 2024, you are going to get back to the push-up, pull-up guy.
Mm-hmm.
We know that. And you're going to try to do you're going to do your physical therapy, et cetera, to align back up with that guy. And that's how I would coach you or doctor you.
Right.
I wouldn't say, Kevin, don't worry about it. Don't try. You're okay. God loves you just the way you are, whether you can do a push-up or not. Because for the next long chunk of years, that's going to create disharmony in your soul.
Yeah.
You're going to want to ride a bike. You're going to want to do these things. So the coaching part in me, and this is the way I think doctors should be, is, yep, we're going to use the tool of medicine, and you did, and you didn't need a surgery. You wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
You wanted a fix. You wanted a fix.
Yeah.
And you do need physical therapy, but you're not even ready for that yet. And we're going to introduce you to Christy, and she's going to say, okay, here's how I do it. Don't start off with a push-up. Let's start off with wall ups and all of these other kind of things that you can, push-ups on a wall. And, 4 weeks ago, you couldn't get your arm on the bar.
I couldn't do this. Check it out. Grabbing my drink and taking a sip of water. All right. Come back to misalignment.
Yeah.
Because you're taking me back to where I was, but let's take somebody who has never been. I had Charles Duhigg, our buddy, Power of Habit, and he's got his new book, Super Communicators. So I had him on the show. Well, I didn't have it. We recorded. I don't know when it'll post. Probably won't post. It'll post. It'll be a while after this. But Charles Duhigg, love the guy. He writes for the New Yorker. He's a Yale grad. He's a Harvard grad. I mean, he's done the stuff. And he said, we were talking about health and wellness in the second part, the part 2, the what drives you. And he says, man, I've never, different than you, Kevin, I've never been an athletic guy. I've never been a fit guy. And he's a writer and an academic. And he says, but I do want to be well. And so I've had to address this. He's, I think, late 40s, a little younger than we are. And he says, but I'm having to address this and figure that out. So to take somebody there and who does want to, and let's say that he didn't say this, but let's say he does want to change, he wants to drop 50 pounds and wants to be able to run actually he does run some race or some runs like that, but he wants to improve. Can he see himself? So that's what I'm curious about when we're looking at transformation and we decide we want to make a change for the better, mm-hmm. and we want to do whatever that is, lose weight or be able to run or be able to go visit the monuments and get out of the wheelchair. Can we see ourselves, or are we often saying, okay, here's my goal, but right off the bat, it's misalignment because we don't see ourselves that way.
Mm-hmm.
We do not see ourselves like me. I don't, if I said right now, you know what, I'm going to change everything. I'm going to move to Manhattan, get a fancy apartment, a fancy car and a driver, and wear a pinstripe suit every day to whatever they cost these days. That's what I'm going to do. I cannot at all. The work now is, Kevin, can you see yourself that way? Not right now. Mm-hmm. So there's our first work. If you're going to do that, you're going to have to start working to change. You need to go visit those people, go live mm-hmm. that lifestyle. You need to go surround yourself with those people. You've got to find some way to align yourself mentally, mm-hmm. or I think you're probably not going to get it. That's the one that gets on me is can we really see ourselves if we commit to the goal to something that we really can't even mm-hmm. align ourselves with?
You know what I think about with, for me? Because there's been, you and I have talked about this too, alcohol.
Yeah.
Alcohol, wine. If we really enjoy wine, it's pretty, most medical doctors these days would say, you know what? It's never good for you. It is. It is poison to the body.
Toxin.
It is a toxin.
Yeah.
But gosh, the taste, the ambiance, the smell, there's so much about it, right? Like that.
I do still wonder about it biblically. So Jesus turned the water into a toxin. He
gave
took
us a
good,
toxin.
clear.
I'll give you that. Okay.
Oh, I'm not even asking. It's just weird. He could have made it into like a green smoothie.
Right. But I was just I was trying to think of the most healthiest thing. Sunshine is a kind of toxin. You can only take so much.
All right.
Right. Like water can kill you
Mm-hmm.
if you drink too much. It is also toxic. Water is toxic. Don't drink too much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So on that principle, we're back to every single thing under the planet can ultimately do you harm if it's malabused. And that's my point is because sometimes I've hit a point in life where I'm like, you know what? I'm just maybe I'll become a non-drinker because at this instant, that seems better. And instantaneously, I'm like, I'm not there.
It seems boring.
Yeah. It's like,
well, it'd be like
downgrade.
It'd be like, I mean, I've one of our friends, I think it was, I can't remember if it was Bo, somebody's doing like a year of no sugar.
Yeah. Meh.
Man.
That's like, okay. Okay. For me, carbs, like I did a 90-day carb-free ketogenic, full on measure ketones, and I did feel better.
Yeah.
I did. And I'd like to get back to that at some points in life. And right now, I've even said, it's kind of like you saying, I'm going to move to New York City. So I went home, told Marcy, this was recently, because I feel it in my joints. I think I really do. Like
carbs?
Yeah. I can tell my ring, my fingers get fat. Like the morning after pizza night, I have fat fingers.
Well, so be legit inflamed.
I'm inflamed.
You have
yes,
inflammation.
It is legit inflammation. Now, I don't put on weight. It's not that I can't go ski the next day or run the next day or whatever. My finger's fat. Like I don't like that. As I see myself in the future, I'd like to, you want to see yourself as, doing push-ups, and me too. And I would like to be able to not have fat fingers because it's a sign of inflammation and all of that. And when I did the 90-day thing, it was gone. I felt better. Okay. Where we are in life right now, to think of designing meal plans, I've got 3 teenagers in the house, to try to just fill them with broccoli and lamb.
And grass-fed meats.
Number one, they're not going to eat enough broccoli. Number two, they don't like half of the meats that we're going to do. And so
your grocery budget's going to triple.
It'll triple the grocery budget, and they're just going to go eat a bar anyway.
Yeah.
So it feels weird, but I said, okay, I'm going to kind of suffer under the inflammatory weight of rice. I mean, for heaven's sakes, rice, like that's not sugar, that's not alcohol, but still in me and where I am in life right now, it's like, golly.
I don't want to deviate the conversation, but when you look at the Asian culture where they're just pounding rice, how does that?
Well, they just South America, they pound corn and beans. Yeah. And in America, the main thing we pound is also corn. It's just in a liquid form. Yeah.
Oh, fair.
And we used to be wheat, bread. It used to be the American staff of life was bread.
And even with corn, like we had our guys from Ethiopia, the runners, and they brought some kind of cornmeal that was like native and it was very different and didn't seem to bother me like normal would. I don't know if rice is different than that, but yeah, when we talk about rice, just white rice, high glycemic, right? Bothering us. Then you have a culture who's
built on it. Like when we were in Japan for 3 years, their word for breakfast, lunch, and dinner is first rice, second rice, third rice. That's the name of the actual meal.
And they're by far and large healthier culturally than we are?
It depends on the measuring sticks you want to use for healthy. They have their own kinds of pathological threads. Okay. But if you want to measure weight, sure, their weight is less. If you go to subcultures, Okinawa, if you're 80, you're young.
Yeah, Okinawa is one of the blue zones.
One of the blue zones, and certainly a lot of rice there.
I know I took us off, but I wanted to come to the blue zone always, because we always do, and talk again about when you've got somebody that Don's working with, some celebrity, they live in a blue zone. It's beautiful people. It's most of them you expect are pursuing health and wellness because they have to. It's literally going to show up. You can only make up so much, so they're in that. So most people have a personal trainer. They have this and stuff. that's another benefit that they have different than your patient, who is often going to come in and they're living a lifestyle. Not that it's depravity or something, but it's just, the average American diet or whatever. Now they got these issues. They come here and you go, man, this is causing you inflammation. It's not a sin. It's not morally wrong. Well, with me, peppers, nightshades.
Yeah.
That's not a sin. I
Right.
don't think I'm going to go to hell for eating, but for me, it causes inflammation to a point that must align with some injury, and it puts my back out.
Yeah.
And so
Okay. Compare that to alcohol, where we live in a culture that at one point said it is a sin. And in fact, prohibition. We're going to prohibit this thing. And nobody prohibited chili peppers, but in you, it creates pathology that's going to be a weight on the system and all that. And if we were morally consistent people, then we should outlaw sugar. We should outlaw processed rice, corn, bean. Like, this is the staff of life in America. Like, these cause problems.
I think I told you, I went to school, one of the kids, yesterday for their Thanksgiving lunch. And it was, turkey, just some old dry turkey and some, bean, like the bean casserole kind of stuff, and bread and stuffing and yada. Anyways, but I'd forgotten, man. I haven't been to school, and we've always had our kids take their lunches for the most part. And we've gotten a little more lenient. Sometimes they do the hot lunch thing now. She has, and I had talked with her about it, so she didn't get. Well, first off, they're getting milk. Milk. They're still having cartons of milk. Milk does not do a body good overall. I don't think. It's still, regardless, a lot of people have an allergy, a sensitivity to it. Yeah. Huge amount do.
Well, and the school milk is the cheapest.
The cheapest of the cheap, over the hormones and the antibiotics and the whatever fills up. And of course, the majority of them, I'm getting chocolate milk. And it was, I think, 26 grams of sugar
per pint,
per little bitty thing.
Little
20
pint.
That's like a candy.
No, that's like a half. That's a half pint.
Okay.
Those little cartons of milk. 26 grams.
I think 26 grams,
which is could be a full day supply. Like, when we put somebody on a low carb diet, 20 grams is kind of what's considered low carb.
Okay.
So in one, like 3 swallows, 26 grams carbs, liquid carbs.
Okay. So there was my point, that's the culture that most of us are living in. We're not in the Hollywood culture. And so when you say, gosh, really be best to get you off of these carbs and less sugar and maybe off alcohol or, whatever it is. And they have to go home with that, or go to the work or their family gathering or the church potluck.
Yeah.
And this is not a blue zone. That I'm just commiserating that this is hard. And that is where hard. Not only do you not have the money to have a personal trainer show up and tell you what to do, which is, matter of fact, what the day, or I think Don Saladino last week or something, we touched base about something, and he said, okay, man, I'm going to be out of pocket because I'm flying to the SAG strike, the actor whatever guild just ended. And Ryan Reynolds is on a plane to Europe, and he says, I'm going with him. I didn't ask, but I'm thinking, why? You've been his trainer forever. Does he not know how to lift a weight or what to eat? And I figure they're going to some new place and he doesn't want to have to think about it. And so Don's going to set it up and he's just going to show up. There are the weights. There's the weight room. Here's the food. He didn't have to think about it. Yeah. Wouldn't that be great? That's not us. We have to go join a gym, buy the weights. We have to go endure the embarrassment or the uncomfortability or the expense that we can't afford, like Ryan Reynolds can necessarily. We've got to go buy food and figure out, wait, what am I supposed to eat again? What is, I don't know exactly what, just again, commiserating. When we come back to transformation, this is hard. And I was going to start off, or he started off, and I'm sure you heard, with saying, what is the biggest, I think I told him, what is the biggest, I don't know if I said myth or the biggest problem. And he said, he sees in the culture, patience. Patience.
That's the first thing I wrote up here.
It
takes time.
Yeah, it takes time, which is, and I said, gosh, it's the antithesis of what
book does not sell.
That we don't want to hear that. And we don't think that either. We think, especially Hollywood, that, oh, you're going to be Thor and he does it overnight, which if that's his sole focus that he's getting paid millions of dollars for, he can probably do it quicker. That's not us. And even there, though, even with those, Don saying it takes.
I mean, and you brought up Chris Hemsworth, and I don't think you brought up the Netflix show, but this is this guy's life. He doesn't. He's
paid to be and look well.
Yeah, but he also believes it. He doesn't eat McDonald's, even when he's not training for a show. Like he's worked hard for 20, 30 years. And Don kept saying this, man, I did, I'm an 25-year overnight success, which Don or Dave Ramsey says as well. We look at these guys that are at the pinnacle of their career, and then and we live in a world of YouTube millionaires, and I want to win the lottery, money for nothing, right? Like I want to take it for granted. I don't want to have to work for my well-being. And I'm like, yeah, man, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying, and now I've been doing it long enough, even on the functional medicine side, to really go to people and when they first come in, you have to meet them where they are. Mm-hmm. And that's right. We're not like, and Don said that too. We're not aiming at a 4-minute mile. Like that's a pinnacle of a career. Here's where you are. Let's rationally, realistically put patients in here. Nobody wants to do this. This is a pain in the butt.
Well, I'm going to say you do a good job of that. Yeah, making it sustainable. So if I come in and I'm, say I've never been really on the health and wellness path. If you just kill me and say, throw out everything in your pantry, you're not going to eat anything that you like. You're going to, you're going to get up at 3 a.m. You're going to quit if it's not sustainable. And that's a good message for us all to hear, that we've got to do something that we know that we can sustain. And if it's baby steps.
Yes. And a lot of what I do also is say, Kevin, you said you're not on the health and wellness pathway, but you are so not dead. You're an awesome, like your finger looks wonderful.
I do.
You don't have fat fingers.
Well, it's kind of fat, but I can feel
it. Not compared to mine.
Okay. Well, I want to that standpoint, coming back to, for all of us, that whatever it is we're trying to do, can we say, I feel like we got to, or the opportunity is in saying, I'm the kind of person that does X or does not. And like if you said, not that you're going to do it, it'd be really boring. I don't know if I'd like you as a friend. If you said, I'm a teetotaler now, I'm never going to have a drink with you again, Kevin. But to some degree to go, I am the kind of person who now does this. There's a decision. There is a line, back to the lines across. There's a line across. If you want to be X, if you want, we were talking this morning about cause and effect from a spiritual nature and all these types of things. But ultimately, if I want this effect, I have to make a decision that this is the cause, the habit that I'm going to do.
Ben Hardy, in your 10X, which is kind of, I'm still in the book. And he's like, set your standards.
Yeah. Yes.
Live by your standards.
Yeah.
And I give you credit when we say this, and you're like, upgrade your appetite. You're gonna have appetite, and you and I have, like, well, I don't know about you, but I haven't bought boxed wine in 10 years.
Yeah,
because it is cheaper. It is this and that and the other.
I'm buying some this week for Thanksgiving because I'm not going to pay that much for everybody to.
Well, okay, you have a standard on the financial side, like to buy 3 bottles of $20 wine versus 1 box wine for $15. Like in this case, in this time or whatever, there's your standard, and you live by it.
Yeah. You
didn't say, or you could, like if you were being invited over to Ryan Reynolds' house, I bet you wouldn't bring box wine.
I bet you're right. I'd probably go buy the most expensive wine I've ever bought. Yeah.
And you and I would not know what we were doing in that world. So there we are, right? Like we don't live in a blue zone. We live in our world. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think we're back to relationship and the coaching of getting into your ring where you are, and this is where there's both, I want to come into that with humility, but I also want to come into that with an expertise. I have been in lots of rings with lots of people. Yeah. And that's what you're paying me for.
Yeah.
Is meet me where I am and help me get to this over there, not that one over there. Running a 4-minute mile, I'm not going to do that, but I like to be able to run without my knees hurting or whatever. Okay, and then and the word I've been really playing around with is we map out where you are now on the spectrum of, you could run a 4-minute mile, or in your case, you could do a single push-up. Mm-hmm. In the past, you've done 50, and maybe in the future you'd like to get back to 50 in a minute, but right now you're on the map of not even 1 regular push-up, you're doing wall push-ups. Mm-hmm. And you couldn't even do that 4 or 5 weeks ago. Mm-mm. And now you can do 10 probably. And then next week, it's going to be the couch push-up. And we're meeting you. Yeah. You also have to meet you where you are. Because if you just say, wow, this is stupid, I can't do this, then you're going to stay at no push-ups longer.
Mhm.
And that's, now we're into,
Which I want to admit, just for candor, I'm struggling with. If I can't do 50 on the floor, I'm struggling to screw with doing one wall push. Seriously?
yeah, which is called wallowing.
I don't want to. Yes,
You're-
I'm wallowing. I'm wallowing. Can I have a glass of wine? Yeah. I again, going back to, I love that, you know, us all standing in front of the mirror or writing it on a thing. I'm the kind of person who, because we do that with so many areas. We do that financially. Are you the kind of person who spends more than you make? I think most people listening to the show would say, no, I know better than that. Are you the kind of person that saves, that has some saving investments, or is building a business, or is, you know, doing something with, I'm the kind of person that does that. Where do we have that with our, really, again, this series is on physical transformation. How do we see ourselves physically? How do we want to? Can we come into alignment? I love your word with that.
Alignment. I'm thinking you said the
Alignment with an
financial
ideal.
piece.
Alignment
An
with
ideal.
Yes.
And you got to be careful with ideal, because there's no such thing as perfection. An alignment with,
well, you said standards. So your personal, your ideal, and my
your
ideal is
personal
not,
definition of well-being.
may
Yes.
not be Thor or
Right.
Ryan Reynolds, a Deadpool,
Because that's
or
where,
whatever.
that's true life, like true life as defined by you.
Yes.
You mentioned financial stuff, and so we are getting ready. I'm prepared. I've got a senior in high school, and we're talking about, you know, next year you're going to be on your own. No child automatically, in and of themselves, knows or does budgeting of whatever money they have. Like, it's irrational. It's impossible. There's no concept of this. And you think, like, no child has an inborn mechanism to say, I don't want that ice cream, when they're 3. Like, if you put it out there, and these studies have been done, psychological, whatever, and now somewhere around the 4, 5, 6 mark, they say, if you don't eat this for 15 minutes, you get 2. And then they leave the room and watch them on camera.
The marshmallow test.
The marshmallow test.
Charles Duhigg, that's where I heard about it, in Power Habit.
The Power
and
Habit.
he talked about it in the show I just did with you.
Okay. So children love to play. Most of the time. Let's take out poverty and abuse and whatever.
Well, we see that, at least, unless I haven't been there to see it, but these pictures they show in, it's stereotypical, you know, Ethiopia, the starving kids in the street, and they're
still going to play.
Playing, seems like.
Okay. But I've never met a 3-year-old. If you invite them into a push-up, that's not a game. Like, hey, can you do this? Or I bet you can't do this, or something like that. Humans don't, of a nature, go and typically do hard things.
Right.
So we're back to the alignment thing, and how do I see myself? And part of this is also culture, like what we were talking about this morning, like, you know, our spiritual concept of, how does God see me? How do I see me? How does my wife see me? How do I want to be seen? It's very complex. And most people, I say all that to say, like my son with the money thing, he just wants the money to be there.
Yeah.
I'm like, where do you think it comes from? Where do you think your room that you're in, and the heat and the electricity that runs that phone that you're entertaining yourself, where does it come from? Like, and I think if there weren't parents that were actually teaching these things, then we do create a culture that says it just should be there. And then we're back to Wall-E. I just want to press a button and my clothes be what I want, my weight be what I want, the screen be what I want, my Coke be what I want right now. And then I'm going to press another button and have another thing. Like, that's the extreme. But in effect, and we're struggling because, you know, my olders, they graduated out of soccer and they didn't want to play basketball. And we're like, okay, what are you going to do for a physical exercise? Because as your parent, you have to. It's a requirement, or you can't do these other things. Well, I am banging my head on the wall because they still don't. And so I'm trying to coach and doctor and parent my kids to say, don't you want to? Well, and I'm trying not to say it with recrimination, right? Like, you know, shame on you. I don't want that to come through, but do you see yourself as an athlete? Because I've been watching you for the past week and you haven't done much but sit in the chair.
Yeah.
And I know they see themselves as an athlete. I'm like, but you're not being athletic. And it's misaligned.
I want to play with that, with the cultural thing, because you and I have experienced it, where you'll have somebody, and I'm gonna pick on it, usually some older guy or something, who will, you're one of them healthy people.
Yeah, you're a health
You're
nut.
a health nut or something like that. And it's interesting because you're talking about your kids, and you and I both remember. So as guys who were giving our kids whole healthy food, we're eating quinoa and raw veggies and whatever as little kids.
Yep.
And we got our kids to do that, and they did that, and they went to school. And initially we sent them to school with that. And then they got to middle school, and all of a sudden that's not cool. And we dealt with the pressure of that. And all of a sudden and I remember my kids, they're like, okay, we know better than to eat the junk that they're given at the school, but it's embarrassing to bring quinoa and whatever. And so if that's the option, I just won't eat. And I had kids just not eat. Okay, now take that forward to at our age, we still have people who will say, oh, you're one of those healthy people. That is a cultural travesty. And again, I'm saying this to commiserate with people, because if you make this change and all of a sudden, instead of the office pizza, the office takeout, the office fast food, or the drinks out, the drinks and burgers afterwards or whatever, and all of a sudden you're doing something different, there's cultural pressure.
It's cultural malalignment.
Cultural malalignment that for some reason we don't have as much over here, because if everybody says, I'm going, let's go out to the movies or go whatever, and you go, I'm kind of pinching pennies or whatever, people are pretty cool with that. Yeah. I totally get that. Or, I'm trying to hang with a healthier, not healthy, but a better crowd of people. I want a more successful people. I think even that people are like, okay. But with food for some reason, and health, and if you're the person who goes out for a walk or does the stairs, you can still get shot at in our culture. So again, back to physical transformation. For some reason, this anomaly that if you're not living in Hollywood where there's an expectation, there's almost an expectation not to pursue health, wellness, fitness.
I lost my word there that I was going to use. People perceive health or exercise as leisure or luxury. I don't have enough time.
Yeah.
I don't have enough energy because I work.
Yeah.
And
I thought you were going to go and say as a judgment too. There's also threat and judgment in that. If you sit down at the table and you're eating your fresh veggie, whatever, you're
judging
you're
me
better than us.
Yeah.
And that still happens. We honestly, we joke about it here. Sometimes I would be prone on our Friday mornings that I'm going to get a donut. I probably should just get a donut. I go, well, I know better than that,
Well, okay. So you will remember 2 employees that I had in the past.
Yes, I do.
And I just had to say one day, I'm going to make a law. You are not allowed to bring in fast food.
Yeah.
And I thought and they perceived me as a jackass, kind of a, whatever. Who are you?
I wonder, you probably shouldn't have recorded that. It's probably some HR violation or something like that.
And those were the kind of people that would have
called you out for that. Yeah.
As you're not allowed to do that.
And yet
I didn't know.
And yet if I'm paying you out of pocket to come in, make me healthy and well, and back then you had nurses on staff and whatever, and they show up with and I remember the one guy
who'd
smell. Well, he'd be smoking out in his car.
And he'd smoke in his car.
Smells like car that, and then he's got the big gulp of sugar and stuff. It's not a good alignment. Which shouldn't be bad, because if I'm coming into a men's store to buy a $5,000 suit and a guy walks up in a wife beater shirt and flip flops,
it's the same thing.
I'm out.
Yeah.
Misalignment.
Yeah, misalignment.
Yeah.
And so we're using these as extremes, and then when you get into the nuance though of the world that we live in, where we've upgraded our appetites by choice and on some things I just don't even have to think about. Like I don't struggle with trying not to go to McDonald's. Don't even think about it. Back to the wine thing, like how much is too much, how much this and that, and the alignment of, I'm not aligned with teetotaling. So how much? And
you're not aligned with getting drunk.
And I'm not aligned with getting drunk. That's right. And I feel pretty, and so where I'm debating with myself is I kind of see it in the very subtle areas of my sleep quality.
Mm-hmm.
And, my stupid ring gives me a bad grade. And I'm wondering, oh, golly, is that going to impact my, future health?
And there's your Don Saladino trainer giving you accountability going, here's the result, cause and effect.
And so I want my alignment with myself is as a, wise person. Mm-hmm. And I want to go into the cause and effect and say, what effect do I want to cause? Mm-hmm. Does the wine or the sugar or the walk or the push-ups help me get there or hamper me from getting there? Mm-hmm. And I think so much of the world puts it in too polar of a position with, oh my gosh, you just have to be wealthy to exercise, mm-hmm. or to have a gym membership or to go. Mm-hmm. You don't understand how hard I work, or you don't understand how much I hurt, or the level of pain I have, or the level of whatever the hampering things are. And that's where, again, to kind of bring it into the reality of us, of mm-hmm. people, using the principle. And I appreciated Don Saladino said, yeah, Ryan is Ryan, but the vast majority of the clients are Mr. Smith. Mm-hmm. And he mentioned the New York City guy who's got to get up at 5 to make it to the gym, to get to there. He's like, right. Man, I know that guy doesn't have leeway.
Yeah. We
got to work within the margin that he has. And that's my sales pitch too.
Yeah.
I'm selling, hey, if you hire me, Mrs. Smith, I also got to pay attention to your husband's taste buds, mm-hmm. and your kids. And I know you've got, you got to chauffeur them around, and you got this and that and the other. So my value add proposition to this is not to say, well, yeah, if you don't read 4 books, walk 4 miles a day, make 4 gourmet meals a day, sleep 8 hours a day, mm-hmm. and read.
Because right now their life is attuned to going from school to this practice, and they stop by McDonald's. That's what they do. And now you're saying, provide a 4-course. How do you do that?
Right. It's impossible.
You have to work around it.
You got to work around. And so that's where I say, well, we just start.
Yeah.
And we start the maps. Like, do you as the captain of your ship realize how pre-diabetic you are? Because you are. We all are. And pre-cancer and pre-death and pre-fatter fingers and pre-no push-ups. But you're also pre-more push-ups and mm-hmm. pre-peace and love and contentment. How do you build that? And because you can. And that's where, that, like we said this morning about happiness. Well, the only thing between you and happiness is your brain.
Is my brain.
And so, we get to the point of saying, okay, what am I going to do? And for many people, and I think for the audience who are people interested in personal transformation mm-hmm. and of their mind and their body, it's like, all right, it is, and that's where it's a miracle that I can contemplate where I am and consider being even better or worse. But and to me, thinking through these things, even though it's very ethereal sometimes or philosophical sometimes, it does inform my decisions. And I can look and say, yeah, when I was 25, I ate fast food 3-4 times a week.
Yeah.
And over the course of the next 20, 30 years, I don't ever think about fast food.
Yeah.
And I want to give myself credit for that. And what's the next thing?
Well, and I want to come back to again, and gosh, not judgment. We're not vilifying fast food. If you want to do fast food,
be the healthiest fast food eater you can be.
Yeah, or do it once a week or whatever. And I'm going to have a donut. I don't do that. What is my ice cream? This weekend at some point, I'm going to have ice cream, and it's going to mess my sleep up a little bit. I'm going to have it anyways, but we're not vilifying. But ultimately, it is those decisions. Again, coming back to, I am the kind of person who does this. I get drunk every night. I have ice cream every night, or I do it when? What do I do? What do I don't do? How do I see myself?
Yep. With an awareness of where you are on the map of what you consider well-being and where you could get to.
Alignment. Well, friends, thanks for joining me as we get our drive in order and in high gear. Thanks to Don Saladino again for being the catalyst for this episode. You can find him at Don Saladino, like salad, INO, saladino.com. And if you use the code DRIVE, if you're interested in any of his e-programs, you can use the code DRIVE and get 20% off. If you want to get in touch with Randy James, which a lot of you guys do, check with him about functional medicine. You can go to truelifemedicine.com and maybe you'll come visit us out here in Colorado. If you appreciated this podcast, be a gift if you leave a review on Spotify or a rating on Spotify and a review on Apple Podcasts and tell us what you got out of the show. You can find us on YouTube and any of the social media at Kevin Miller CO. You can watch the shows in entirety on YouTube and see a lot of the clips on our social media. So Kevin Miller CO. And if you want to learn how to master your own inner drive, you can check out my book, What Drives You, on Amazon. Until next time, stay driven.
Yeah.